Welcome to the I Work for Him podcast. I'm Michael Miracle, producer of the I Work for Him radio program, the voice of the faith and work movement. Our mission is to transform the workplace of every Christian into a mission field. What does that look like in your workplace? Let's find out right now.
You've tuned into I Work for Him, the mouthpiece of the faith and work movement. We're your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg.
Thanks for joining us. And I just want to call attention to the Awaken Podcast Network, which is a place that keeps growing. Every week we are adding new podcasts out there. You can find it on awakenpodcastnetwork.com. It's a platform where you can find different voices of the faith and work movement that are speaking, having podcasts that just might really meet you where you're at and what God has a message for you to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited about today's conversation, Martha, because we all like to go on vacation. Everyone likes to get away, to relax, explore, eat, and especially sleep in. We just like to check out from the real world for a few days, or really for a few weeks. But what if your vacation moments turned into defining moments? What if everywhere you went, you learned how God had woven in the story of the gospel into that very location? First of all, where would you find out that information? And second of all, how do you plan travel in today's COVID world? Well, the show isn't going to be focused on COVID, but on having and experiencing those defining moments with God while traveling. Rick and Susan McCarthy are so well connected with about 8 ministries that we work with all the time. It's amazing we haven't had them on the show before, but they're joining us today. They have a heart and passion for the faith and work movement and connecting faith and work, but also for making the most of their vacation moments. Here to tell their whole story is Rick and Susan McCarthy themselves. Welcome to I Work for Him.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
All right, so Rick, how did you and Susan meet?
Well, our story involves travel, involves God, and that both of us had saved up cash to buy a used car. Both of us looking for a convertible before we knew each other. She prayed about it, heard God say yes, kind of surprised her because it was a little bit of a splurge, and she went ahead and bought the car. I prayed about it, and God said, no, I'd like you to give the money today to this ministry. So I wrote the check to the ministry, and that day I met Susan online, so I got a girl and a convertible out of it. And then it turned out another friend of ours, mutual friend, had been telling us about each other for a couple of years, saying he wouldn't give me her number until, because he wanted to introduce us in person when he was in town. And he said, because you're into the same things. You guys like to travel, and you're into that Jesus thing, and you like entertaining. And that's how he saw both of us. So anyway, God got tired of waiting and jumped in himself.
That's great. His timing is perfect. So, Susan, how long then into your entrepreneurial marriage did you and Rick realize that your faith and work were really intricately connected?
Yeah, it was about 6 months in.
Okay.
And Rick's a CPA by trade. And he said, I want to start coaching Christian CEOs for Convene. What do you think about that? And, at first I'm like, wait a second, what's that going to do to our finances? But God always makes a way. And then I had a chance to leave my career and go into my passion of ministering to ministry leaders and to women. And, we thought, like, God, this is crazy. How are you going to make this happen? And he did. And so we really got to start moving toward our passions, although we still work together in a CPA practice just to as our tent making.
So, Rick, how have you, as a CPA and all the other things you're involved in, like the Pocket Testament League, I mean, we go on and on with the list of ministries you're connected to. How have you seen God work in your work?
Well, all the time would be the answer for that. Certainly all my clients in the CPA practice know clearly about my faith. I always have something to start conversation on my desk, like, Francis Chan's rope, with a little red piece that represents, this life here on earth, and the long rope representing eternity, or a 12-week model of a fetus or something. So there's always opportunities to talk. I talk a lot about charitable giving and estate planning and involving ministries in that. So there's a lot of opportunities. And then, as Susan mentioned, I'm a chair with Convene, where I coach Christian CEOs, presidents, business owners of multi-million-dollar companies and bring them all together once a month for a wise counsel from their peers group. And it's just remarkable to sit in that seat and see all that God does through each of these organizations.
Wow. And it doesn't sound like anything is by accident with you. If you have intentional things like that on your desk, I can't imagine the conversations that get to come up. That's so awesome.
It's fun.
So, Susan, you and Rick, as we mentioned, you're involved in a lot of really great organizations that God has allowed to grow across the country and the world. Tell us how God is using you to, tell us who God has you two working with. Like, what are these organizations that you're getting to do together?
So it's funny how they have a similar theme through most of them of ministering to leaders, because leaders are such a precious commodity in a kingdom. And we've just been called there. So we're standing stone mentors. So we pastor pastors and give them a safe place, and their wives, to have conversations. We are also, so that's Standing Stone Ministries. We're also involved with African New Day, which is out of Eastern Congo, and building up leaders there. Rick's on the board for Evangelical Christian Credit Union. We are involved with Barnabas, which is a ministry that helps other ministries stay strong. Rick's on the board of Sheepfold. It's a Christian ministry for moms and their kids that are abandoned or abused. Pocket Testament League, you guys talked about. Q Ideas we're involved with, and Pacific Justice Institute. So God just has given us the gift of being able to work in these ministries and have a front row seat to see what he's doing. And it's awesome.
How do you guys have time to sleep and go on vacation? I mean, you guys wrote a book on defining moments in your vacation. I don't even know how you have time to go on vacation, but we're going to get that next segment. Rick, as a businessman, which organization has made the biggest impact on your life and helping you live out your faith at work as a leader, owner, employer?
I would say the master's program developed by Bob Shank. I went through that years and years ago, and it's about finding the convergence of your career and your calling. Your career is what you're paid for, your calling is what you're made for. For me, CPA, helping people grow their businesses, that's my career. My calling is helping men in accountability relationships, kind of raise the bar on their Christian walk. So I live at the intersection of faith and commerce. And then coming out of that, the originally alumni group was the Martimus group, which is for marketplace leaders and how we can help in ministries pro bono. So that's kind of where it started. But my calling is clearly to influence the influencers, to leverage leaders.
Well, when we come back, we're going to be digging deep into this book that Rick and Susan wrote called Defining Moments, the Transformational Promises of Faith-Based Travel. How do you live with intention in your travel time on vacation and seeing the mighty hand of God in the locations that you can go visit across the globe? You're listening to I Work for Him with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and we'll be right back.
As a busy leader, you've realized that you can't do everything on your own. You need help living out your God-given purpose. And thankfully, Belay, an organization dedicated to revolutionizing productivity with their virtual assistant, bookkeeping, and social media strategist services, can help. If you're wondering what you can delegate to make your life easier to live out your calling, look no further. Belay is offering a free download of 3 actionable delegation resources: 30 things to delegate to a virtual assistant, 10 things to delegate to a bookkeeper, and 20 things to delegate to a social media strategist, so you can get back to what really matters, fulfilling your purpose. To learn more, just text 4HIM to 55123. Again, that's the number 4HIM to 55123.
Hey, welcome back to I Work for Him. As we're talking today with Rick and Susan McCarthy. They've written this book that we want you guys to get a hold of, Defining Moments, the Transformational Promises of Faith-Based Travel. And you can find it online at definingmomentsbook.com. So many of us want to go on vacation with a purpose. They wrote a whole book about every location in the globe, maybe not everyone, that has a gospel-focused purpose. Well, they're going to describe all this stuff, but definingmomentsbook.com is where you get it. Susan, when did you and Rick start traveling with the idea that you can have defining moments on vacation?
Well, it actually started before I even met him. I was single. I went on a church trip with Mariners Church, and we went to Israel. And at each of the sites that we went to, they had a time, not just to hear about the history, but to have a personal question that brought you deep into intimacy with the Holy Spirit with the intent of hearing God's voice. What did He have for you at that particular site? And then you would share that at the end of the visit there, and then you'd go on more about it at the end of the night. And what happened was people started changing, and I started changing and having these amazing aha moments with God. And I came back and I'm like, I want to do this every vacation. So I booked another vacation, same church, but different style. It was a great trip. It was very historical and wonderful people. But there wasn't that aha moment with God besides. And it broke my heart because that's why I wanted to go. So I thought, wait, other people are going on all these trips and they're not getting any of these aha moments. I want that to happen for everybody. Mm-hmm. So that's the start of it.
So then where did the idea come, Rick, for you guys to move forward and put this into a book form?
I personally had always had a goal to write a book on the great festivals of the world because of my love of travel, and knew I'd have to go to all of those to write about them. As I became a believer and it became more significant, relevant part of my life, I realized none of those were really God-honoring things. They were mostly pagan, drunken festivals. So when we, under the Masters program, there's an event, a program called DreamMasters. And so I told Susan the year we got married, I said, we're going to do a DreamMasters weekend where you go off together and first you separately look at the dreams for the rest of your life in each area, and then you come together and share them with each other and say, okay, I support that one of yours, or I share that one, let's do it together. And so it was out of that weekend that we got this dream to write this book together. And then when we started researching it, we realized there was no book like this. So there's lots of great books out there and great tours that cover the head, historical, touristy experience, but don't cover the heart, life application, defining moment with God experience that Susan described.
So often we talk about work on this show, and we talk about the intersection of work and marriage, the competition between work and marriage. I don't know that we've ever done a show, Martha, about vacation.
Yeah.
Just answer this question. It's a little out of the order of what I was going to ask you guys, but why is vacationing so important as a business owner? Why? Rick, you answer that. Start with, and we'll get Susan's perspective.
Well, I think what's important is you want to have your best moments of your year with your beloved. And for us, travel is what we really, really enjoy. We're actually on vacation right now, and we travel about 140 days a year, and none of it's for business. It's for ministry and for fun. And so you want to have those great moments, and that also includes spiritual. And so not only are we enjoying traveling together, we're enjoying the deeper intimacy that we're getting with each other and with God, as Susan described earlier. I always believed in balance is important, and time without kids is important, but I think it's really critical for couples to spend time like that together.
And it's encouraging to hear, I want to dig into more about what the defining moments are really like, but let's just, imagine for a minute, Susan, that you could pick one of your favorite faith-based travel destinations that you've either been on or it's still on a bucket list somewhere. What would that be?
The Sea of Galilee was really special for me in Israel because, beyond a shadow of a doubt, Jesus was there and the disciples were there. And one of the defining moments we went through and is in the book is when you visit there, you're in a boat similar to the design of one of the big fishing boats that the disciples would have used. And, we read the passages about them being in the boat with Jesus. And yes, wind and waves are coming up, but we think the God of the universe is in your boat. What is wrong with you guys? So you tell that story on the boat, the facilitator does, and then he says to each of you, you have the God of the universe in your boat, figuratively. He's living in you right now. What are you afraid of? What are you holding on to? And then you invite everybody on the boat who wants to share to talk about what is it that they're holding on to. One lady that started on our boat talked about being an illegitimate child 50 years ago and how that affected her, and just cried and completely let go of that fear on the boat. Well, that started a domino effect of everybody on the boat kind of being vulnerable with their deepest fears and leaving them on the boat for Jesus and not bringing them back with them. And so when you have these kinds of transformational moments, you never forget them. And then you stay connected with these people for years. You remember their stories even.
Wow, I have chills when you shared that because it's just like you just said, one thing to go on a vacation, see a place where you know Jesus was, but to have your own life-changing experience while you're there makes it all have a whole new meaning for you. So, Rick, what about you? What would you put as on the top of your favorite list?
The book covers Israel, like Susan mentioned, Paul's journeys, Greece and Turkey, Reformation, and short-term mission trips. For me, the Paul's journeys trip, there were a number of places. I mean, like Patmos, you're standing in the cave where John wrote the book of Revelation. I mean, phenomenal. Philippi, what used to be a Roman colony up in northern Greece, then Macedonia, where Lydia became the first convert in the Western world. You're right there with it. But for me, Ephesus, I've been to almost 100 countries, and it's the best preserved ruins I've seen anywhere in the world. It's just so much that you learn there. And, Paul wrote the book of Ephesians to the church in Ephesus and trying to remind them of their deep spiritual inheritance that they have in God because they were off track. And so we took a defining moment opportunity there and kind of asked the question, what's holding you back from having that kind of freedom, having that kind of living that spiritual inheritance? And again, the stories that people come up with are amazing. And then it keeps building throughout the day. That night you talk about more and more things come out. And so it's just, there's a richness that happens and a bonding within the group that's really important that comes through those experiences being shared.
We talk all the time on I Work For Him about being intentional, living out your faith at work, to recognize that you may be the only Jesus your coworkers, your employees, your bosses may ever meet, your vendors, your customers. But as we go on vacation, it's also super important that we recognize that God wants us to go on vacation too. He called us to take a day of rest once a week. And we know that He had 4 festivals throughout the year for people to take a week off at a time to celebrate and to rest and to not do regular everyday work. We're talking today with Rick and Susan McCarthy. They've written this book, Defining Moments, the Transformational Promises of Faith-Based Travel. And we'll be right back with a couple more of their favorite locations and a couple other tough questions. You're listening to I Work For Him with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We'll be right back.
Want to build a profitable side hustle that impacts people with truth and healing in themselves and their leadership? Then look at becoming a certified leadership coach with Giant. Giant has been in the leadership space for over 13 years and has over 500 coaches in over 127 countries. Their coaches are being hired by Fortune 500 companies and organizations like I Work For Him. Jim and I took the Giant Sherpa training under one of these great coaches to become leaders worth following. Giant gives you everything you need to start your own coaching business from scratch, like hands-on training from top-level coaches, access to an all-in-one online platform to run your entire coaching business, and you get to join a thriving community of coaches around the world. To get started, Giant is hosting a coaching business workshop to help you learn how to build a successful coaching business. This workshop is 100% free, and you can reserve your spot by going to giant.tv/I Work For Him. If you're ready to impact people and get paid to do it, go to giant.tv/I Work For Him. That's giant.tv/I Work For Him.
Hey, welcome back to I Work For Him. As Martha and I talk today with Rick and Susan McCarthy, they've written this book, Defining Moments, the Transformational Promises of Faith-Based Travel. Online, you can get a copy of this at definingmomentsbook.com, definingmomentsbook.com. All right, here's the deal. I was thinking about this during this last segment. Some people may never travel across the globe ever again. So, Susan, what do? Can you have defining moments in faith-based travel here in the United States?
So the beauty of this book is that you can use it as a devotional, and you can pull up pictures online and see where you would have been, but you can have, even if it's by yourself, this interaction with the Holy Spirit, asking God about the questions that we give you for each individual site, taking part in the worship songs we recommend, in the prayer that we recommend, and the Bible verses, so that you can interact in that way. You can do it with one other person, of a husband and wife, want to give life to the answers and out loud talk about it. And you can even do small groups. As well as if you are able to go traveling, just take, even if you're on a group tour and they're not into the God thing, that it's just more of a secular tour. You can take our book and do it on the bus while you're going, at the end of the day, when you're kind of winding down. You can take yourself through all of these defining moments.
Well, and that's the question I really had. I'm that person, I want to get into the details of how does this work for me? Like, why would I have this book, or how would it work? So what is the goal with the book? I mean, you've said here are some ways that we can use it personally. Is the goal to get a group of people to all go on a tour together and use the book, or any variety of those things?
I think it's all of the above, because, when you're on a group, there's no doubt you don't go to make new best friends, but you really get very, very close with people. It's very significant when you share that together. But if you're going on your own, again, you can use this to have your experiences together. Armchair travelers are using it. I think the key is just digging deep into the application of what happened in that place I've read about in the Bible many times, and how's that relevant to my life today. And then you take it, like we go to Congo. We serve in Congo every 2 years. And that's when I talked about having those shared moments being significant together.
Right.
We love doing that together.
For those people that aren't going to travel out of the United States because of COVID, maybe for the next decade or however long it takes to get this thing wiped out, there's got to be some faith-based defining moments, places here in the United States of America. Have you guys written about any of them in your book?
I guess that's book 2.
I was going to say volume 2. Because Martha and I had an incredible experience in the church where Washington went to church in Manhattan, right near where Wall and Broad are. There was a little Methodist church right at the tip top. When the towers fell, there was debris in the front yard, but the church remained standing, and it was a place where our country was formed. A deeply spiritual moment with a sycamore tree in the front, which was significance of that in the scriptures. I believe that there's defining moments. There's a lot of stuff for volume 2, I think.
Well, and I think you're teaching us good practices just for in perspective. Even if we're going about our day and we see an oak tree and we know that God, the God of the universe, cared enough to make an acorn fall, and allow that oak tree to rise. And just what do we do with that information? And I was just thinking, Jim, it really connects so well to faith and work in the sense that it's being intentional. This whole idea of intention in your vacation, to seeing how God is interwoven in the so many different places of our world. And the same thing goes true for our everyday with our work. He's interwoven in every aspect of our life. We just sometimes ignore that.
It's exciting. Go ahead, Rick. It looks like the two of you both want to say something. Go ahead, say it quick, because I got one final question.
There's so much cool stuff to see in Washington, D.C. on the monuments, the Bible Museum. We went to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky, phenomenal. The Creation Museum, also in Kentucky, phenomenal. So there are so many opportunities we have here.
He's already writing the transcript.
That's right. Volume 2. Susan, get ready. Your guys are going to start traveling the way we travel. Get a minivan, travel for a year all over the United States of America. All right, last question, because we got to be done. You guys are an entrepreneurial couple, but you also work with marriages to help marriages thrive. What advice, and we'll start with you, Rick, and then we'll go to you, Susan. What advice do you have for entrepreneurial couples in order for them to keep their marriages solid and growing? Because entrepreneurial couples deal with a little extra added stress.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really, first of all, for the man. I'll answer for the man. The man, to me, our job is to help our brides discover, pursue, and achieve their dreams. And so when I hear Susan say she's living her dream, I feel like a stud, like I'm killing it, and because that's really important. I think also for us, it's to help prepare our brides for eternity, and so that is important. In business, I think it's important to understand the role that our spouse may want in the business. They may want no role. They may want to be a confidant and kind of a listener. They may want to be an advisor that gives feedback, or they might want to be a full partner. And also, what level do they want to know? Some wives don't want to hear about financial challenges because they don't know how to handle it, and others want to know fully everything. So, I think it's important that they do that, and also that the leader, the CEO, is getting wise counsel in other places like Convene from here, through a biblical lens.
Excellent. And Susan, how about you? What advice would you give?
We go through a lot of marriage conferences, church talks on marriage, and the DreamMasters weekend that we did was so intentional. You spent a weekend really hearing God, working with him on both your personal dream, then your marriage dreams, your ministry dreams, and then coming together with your mate and hashing those out. And I would recommend people do something like that. BetweenTwoTrees.org does these DreamMasters weekends. And I'm sure there's a lot of other great dream content out there, but I would say really pursue and get clear on what your dreams are together.
Rick and Susan McCarthy, as you have written this book, Defining Moments, the Transformational Promises of Faith-Based Travel, we're super excited that you shared it with our audience here on I Work for Him. We're super excited about all the ministry stuff that you guys got going on. Thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Jim.
DefiningMomentsBook.com, DefiningMomentsBook.com. Get a copy and take it with you on your next vacation. You've been listening to I Work for Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace, it's our mission field. But ultimately, I work for Him.
Did you know that God has a calling on your life? It's true. He's called you to bring Jesus to the world. For some, that may look like a pulpit or a foreign mission field, but for most of us, it looks like a construction site, a cubicle, a hospital, or a classroom. Wherever it is that you work, live, volunteer, and invest, that is your mission field. To learn more about integrating your faith into your work and retirement, check out our books, I Work for Him, She Works for Him, and I Retire for Him by going to iworkforhim.com/bookstore.
Thank you for listening to the I Work for Him podcast with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work for Him Nation, or subscribe to our weekly blog. You can also follow us on social media at I Work for Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's at I Work for Him and online, iworkforhim.com. I work the number 4him.com.